Alright guys, welcome to the Red Report. In this show we bring you all the news and happenings from around the verse to keep you up to date on what's what. We're gonna skip the community section this week because I haven't been keeping up basically. There might have been a little game called Ark Raiders might be responsible. I apologise, I have been slacking somewhat. But we do have a lot of news to cover, so let's get on with the show. First up we got some dev responses. Niku from CIG, in response to a question about ships getting added to the game and not through Wikelo, he said, "We're planning to add new ships to in-game stores before the end of the year. We're starting with the first editions in 4.4.0, including the Asgard MTC and Starlancer TAC, with more to follow. The Guardian MX, the Prowler Utility and the Meteor." I quite like that Meteor, by the way. I was in it the other day. It goes the same speed as an Avenger Titan, which was surprising. I kept on getting one shot by missiles though, but firepower and stuff seemed excellent. I'm just not sure about its lifespan. But for the Frontier Fighters thing, you know, where you're hiding in the gas cloud, jumping out, killing a single target and then getting out of there, it's absolutely excellent. Get in there, hit them like a brick, get out again. There you go, that's my Meteor review. This is a 2-in-1 video. Russell was asking about the recent QA dev playtest of the RSI Perseus and what the teams found out. Raven from CIG responded, "Earlier in October we set out on a plan to answer a couple of big questions. How does the Perseus perform under the rigours of fully crewed and multiplayer environment? Does the Perseus feel like the sub-capital killer we and the community envisioned during its concept?" To answer those questions we put together about a half dozen teams to fully crew multiple Perseus and put it through its paces from basic ground cargo and station operations, atmospheric and zero-G flight trials, and massive melee that began with pitting the Perseus against all classes of fighters, sub-capital ships like the Aegis Hammerhead, and capital ships, think the Polaris, both in dense PvE engagements like our mission content, as well as org v org style PvP battles. In our PvP battles we opened out flooding the field with fully crewed Perseus ships, and as unfortunate crews met their demise, we reorganised into fighter squadrons to get revenge. This kind of playtest gave us a whole new level of insight that we might often not see until the vehicle has already released. I'm excited to read and watch the RSI Perseus make its way into the verse, and keep notes of reactions and feedback. I was kinda hoping that that would contain any relevant changes that they made post en masse Q&A test, but it doesn't seem to. So I guess they thought it was perfect right out of the gate. We shall soon see. A player was asking about these flight changes on SP Viewer, because they couldn't make sense of them, for obvious reasons. Yogi Clat said these are just scaling numbers that we use to affect flight handling. For example, when thrusters are placed far from the centre of mass of a ship, you do not need a lot of thrust to create torque as opposed to linear movement, so the modifiers help us balance things out. We can also use them for very quick tuning passes without rebalancing the whole flight tuning for a ship. However, when these numbers change, it does not necessarily mean that a ship performs better or worse. They can also just be corrective measures to compensate for like increases in ship mass, etc. So in short, these are not player facing values and you cannot infer from them if anything is actually changed. This guy says the problem is nothing is a player facing value, and so there's no meaningful way for us to distinguish numbers that are useful to us from those that aren't, because nothing is communicated by the game or the patch notes. Yogi says, "I understand the argument, but specifically for flight a lot of these numbers might not help you make a good decision. The dynamics are often too complex. Easy public facing numbers on the flight model right now are things like top speed or so, but with the new flight model that will change, because the flight model will become dynamic as changes in mass will not just affect the accelerations but also top speeds. We couldn't show you a lot of data on a ship that is powered off. Literally all the values are dynamically available only when a ship is fully powered, and the physics calculate how heavy that ship is as our thrusters actually produce thrust, which in turn defines the available accelerations /G's defined by the mass. You throw in heavier shield generator into the loadout, it will change your acceleration and top speeds. We actually had discussions several times what to show. Some of the flight data is really hard to show in an offline manner, so to speak. Personally, I don't think that every number needs to be public, as min-maxing can easily hide things or choices. There's a good example from World War II on the performance of FW-190 versus the BF-109. Oh, here we go. Yogi's getting into it, dude. In raw performance, the FW190 was advantageous in almost all categories, climb rate, speed, etc. But pilots often preferred the BF109, and the reason wasn't easily put in objective numbers, it was just more pleasant to fly. So picking the better plane is actually a subjective feeling of the pilot. Some of these principles can be applied to SE's flight model in certain areas, so we still have some discussion to do in that regard. Damn, that new flight model sounding complex and deep and possibly strategic, and I love it. I really love it. If it works, that is. I just wish, my main hope is just for some inertia to things. I hate that feeling when you're flying just above the ground in a fighter and it's like you're just moving a mouse around. You know, you go left, as soon as you let go it stops. There's no build up time and slow down time. It's too jittery. That alone would make things feel so much more realistic to me. And it sounds like in this new flight model, just hovering alone for any length of time might be problematic. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. I do keep asking Yogi every time he pops up if current nav speeds and freedom of flight will be affected by the new quantum boost mechanic, because the last we heard that will extend from the top speed of the current combat mode all the way up, which sounds like we're losing nav speeds. And the way they put it, it sounded like you were able to gain a bit of that back through ship and component crafting. And in my mind, quantum boosting is going to be mostly straight lines. You will be able to steer, but you know, it won't be nav flight. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. I really want to be wrong. But yeah, he hasn't got back to me on that. But if he ever does, I'll let you know. Somebody asked if there's any chance we could get an MFD that describes the flight envelope at the moment. We spend so many hours testing performance, it would be nice if the ship told us the max G/speed per axis that it can pull in any given environment based on what's equipped, but also include aspects like jerk and control surface influence and atmo. Knowing what to expect can also tell us when something is wrong, or if it's just unexpectedly intended. Differences on paper and in use are still going to matter to the people that spend time in their ships, while racers and fighters still get their simulation data when fine-tuning ship performance. What a fantastic idea. Because right now, if that flight model comes in and you're flying around, you're not going to know if that's just the way things are intended, or if this ship's supposed to fly that way, or if you've just got a big hole in your wing, or one of your flaps has failed and things like that. But also, like he said earlier, if things like the density of the atmosphere, possibly the temperature, possibly the weight of all your components, how functional your thrusters are, is all going to play into your flight model. It would be good to know the current status across the board. Yogi says, we do have concepts somewhere for a more technical flight info page, similar to those flight diagnostic pages you find in real life aircraft. It lists things like current/max Gs, velocities in every direction, current weight, acceleration against gravity, so it can show you if you can actually hover, take off or safely land, etc. We know all that information already, and it's not hard to put on some MFD, but that also needs to be designed first and implemented, and compared to other things, it's more of a side thing to do when bigger things are out of the way. It's not hard, but it's more polish for the new flight model than priority work, if that makes sense. Oh, that's good news. That's really good news. Ben Parry's back out here giving the good answers. Does Star Citizen even have occlusion culling? Yes, we have occlusion culling, currently CPU side, which makes it easier to do things like prevent shadow calculations from even being submitted, though this has the downside that it can sometimes get holes in it when moving quickly. Nice, will Vulkan be able to move it to GPU sided so it can free up the main thread, or is that not how it works? GPU side culling can be nicer, you get to use fresher data, but that means you can't cut work on CPU based on the result. For instance, with the CPU system, we can avoid submitting shadow calculations for lights that aren't visible. Modern APIs like Vulkan add some flexible features that help with the GPU-driven command generation, but fully switching to GPU culling would mean moving a lot of stuff we currently do on the CPU to the GPU, just so that we'd be able to skip the culled ones. I probably shouldn't try to give any more detail than that because I'm not in my special area. No missions for the People's Alliance? Elliot Maltby says you can't do missions for the People's Alliance yet. We do want them and are fully aware of the narrative of Nyx and how important the PA are to the system. With the goals of 1.0 we are focusing getting the main guild factions in. It is why you have now seen Dead Saints, FTL and Intersect Defense Solutions. The reason being these help push us towards 1.0 and also help get the stage set for when Rep V2 comes in. That answers a lot of questions, just that one sentence there. The push for 1.0 means that getting a rep and all the factions into the game is taking a bit more precedent at this current time for the missions team. That could be why we're seeing a relatively slower trickle of the old missions coming back into the game. But they are coming. It was in the last news section that they were working on quite a few things, like the black box missions, the courier missions, I think there was a few others, can't remember exactly what, but they're coming, they are coming. A new event mission has showed up on the PTU, Vandal Tech Smugglers. It's a PvE mission centred around gaining access to high value loot rooms inside a space station. It will see us investigating the Shattered Blade base. Upon arriving, the player will see Vandal attacking the Shattered Blade. That's a group in the game. Oh, this must be the Welcome to Nyx that got mentioned at SitCon. Players will be asked to come for a reward and end up being ambushed. You can then explore around, find some encrypted data and upload it to complete the mission. We also got the Triple Threat, which fires 3 shotgun shells with each pull of the trigger. Sounds like the absolute perfect pocket-sized close quarters weapon. And you can find it alongside the kill shot and the pulverizer in the weapon shop in Levski. There was a player injury pass. Intention with this update is to make injuries reflective of time spent in combat and act as warnings when you need to rest and restore. The amount of damage to get an injury has increased for each body part by around 1.5 times. Oof. It also reduces how much max HP reduction you get from initial injuries. So reduces, as in, you know, when you can't heal back up to full, that should happen less with the first couple of injuries you take. Remove the RNG chance for injuries to occur. Injuries now have binary trigger thresholds. Not sure what that means. But I have noticed that you can just suddenly get injured from running around and bumping into people and things like that. So maybe that's been removed and it seems like there's now stronger thresholds for the amount of damage you need to receive before it will register. The Vandal Tech Smugglers mission is now behind a reputation gate that will require rank 1 junior contractor with Intersect to become available. In the tech preview channel, some ongoing testing with engineering has been underway and things seem to be progressing nicely. Reports are that the time to kill on ships is massive, because now you need to actually take out the components within. For example, on the leaks channel it says Pisces just face tanked 120 shots of Rhino and didn't even go slightly red. There appear to be markers for convergence so that you can actually see where your shots will land without a target. But in the latest patch notes for that build, they've added modifiers to reduce and restrict damage penetration. They've implemented the new fuse/relay gameplay, and they've allowed MFDs to work with no power available. Yeah, there's a lot of things in the background that need to be figured out before this comes anywhere near a live build. Doors on ships need to support a low power mode, for example, as well. A hull health bar was added, a hotkey was added for repair all button, and just a massive amount of bug fixes and changes. Like, they're really in there hammering this out with the players. So when I say it's coming along, I mean, like, from a foundational state it's coming along, which is still good news at the end of the day. But it's possible a lot of people's fears about engineering being an interference to their day-to-day gameplay might be slightly assuaged now, because it's looking like the survivability of most ships will outweigh that. This is what the schedule for IAE in 2955 looks like, with RSI leading the charge. I anticipate the sky to be fully blacked over, with Perseus flying around. Should make for some great ship-to-ship battles. The show lasts for 2 weeks and it is in Orison, where you'll be able to check out all the ships and vehicles and rent all the ships and vehicles. There will be quite a few new surprises as well, and the rental access unlocks as that manufacturer goes on display. It will also be free to play during that event, so tell your friends, get them involved. and let me know below what ship you're going to be gunning for. Personally, I'm going to make sure that I have a gladiator by the end to get that ship skin for the best in show. If you don't know how that works, if you have any of the 4 ships that won the best in show in your web hanger, so as in bought with money, real money, you will be awarded a special limited edition skin. The ships are the Asgard, the Gladiator, the Zeus ES and the Polaris. The best in show ships will receive the limited edition best in show livery as well as their in-game manufacturer poster. These are available to all players with these ships in their hangars. Additionally, the Polaris will receive a collectible in-game championship pennant to commemorate the glory of being this year's Ship Showdown champion. If you already have one of these ships, you'll receive the IAE exclusive paint and extra items following the last day of the event at no cost. To be eligible to receive the paints, the specific best in show ships, and not the variants, need to be in your web hanger at the end of IAE. Having them in your buyback list won't grant you the best in show paints. If you melt any of the ships before receiving the associated paints, then you will no longer be eligible. Everyone pledging for best in show ship during IAE will receive the paints and items too. Please note that these best in show edition bundles already contain the best in show paints and posters within them and will not grant the standalone versions of those items. Starting with IAE 2955, gold licenses will no longer be required to get your hands on an F8C Lightning and will be available to all players for pledge. It is still limited to 1 per account. That said, we want to celebrate 2 groups of players. Those who've redeemed a gold license previously and those who've reached the qualifying concierge tier. If you're in either group, you will receive a special commemorative Nightweaver livery. Holy buckets, are you kidding me? Oh my god, I need. That is beautiful. I would say it's about 53 times better than the purple and white Milka version. IAE 2955 is your final opportunity to pledge for certain ships at their current pricing. Sometime after the event, these ships will receive price adjustment to reflect recent and upcoming development updates. Okay. Misk Hull A, Misk Hull B, Argo Raft and Gatak Railing. Wait, they're gonna go up in price? And what do you mean upcoming development updates? You're gonna do something to my raft? Interesting. Very interesting. I wonder what that could be. That's gonna annoy me not knowing that. What could it be? Cloaking technology. Yep, definitely. That's it. Nailed it. Will there be Warbond daily deals available? Yes, check back each day. Quantity stock limited ships. If you're looking to pick up anything crazy, there's your wave times. 20th of November is the Constellation Phoenix. 21st is Origin 890 Jump. Then it's the Drake Kraken and the Kraken Privateer. Then the Hull E, then the Pioneer, then the Idris P and the Javelin. So if you're thinking about entering the F5 wars, that's your big chance. I can't even consider things like that. The thought of melting my whole fleet to then lose the F5 war is just beyond my comprehension. I would cry for a lot of days. Also, there is only 1 wave to have your ships locked in for the best in show skins. Normally there's 2, but there's only 1 this time. So if you planned, like I did, to switch out your ships halfway through to get the other 2 skins, CIG has completely left a warm turd in your pocket. Thanks CIG. That's just awesome. There were a few files found in the game that would suggest CIG is working on a VR mode. When this meme post was made, Sylvan CIG responded with this monkey. I know that's far from a confirmation, but I'll take it, especially with Valve's new headset around the corner. Over on the leaks, we've got all the new Testudo armour variants. And they are suitably armoury and suitably variant. Not a massive fan. They have got a bit of a Doomslayer vibe, but they look a bit derpy to me. That one's okay, I guess. Carver and Maul blades. Some paints for the new Killshot rifle. And paints for the new Triple Down. Also, in case you haven't seen it, the new boom tube that's been added to Levski. Fires 3 rockets pretty much sellotaped together. I mean, look at that bolt there. Like, it's just a bit of pipe. Pulverizer, LMG paints. Look at that rust. Kinda cool, kinda cool. I know a few people will want pristine versions of this though, especially with crafting coming and things like that. Like, you can't be handing us worn parts if we just crafted it from scratch. The carrion armour. It's pretty cool, I like that helmet. And the best in show posters, with the new paint scheme applied. That is an orange Polaris. Not a grey Polaris, an orange Polaris. Looking damn awesome. This is the Wikelo variant of that same rocket launcher. I feel even Wikelo wasn't pulling his weight here. I mean, can't no one fabricate a freaking tube with no dents in it these days? I don't honestly care. I would be happy with a sharp stick, to be honest, but I know this really pisses a lot of people off. There's mention in a data mine about a Drake Clipper, white, black and red paints, Grey Cat MTC, grey and red camo, the RSI Perseus, grey, blue and red, and the RSI Salvation, black and gold and black. That Epoch set that we mentioned earlier that's for the Twitch drops, there's another 2 sets like that. One's the Aves Armour Epoch set that comes with the Aves Armour aesthetic and obviously the Aves helmet, but the armour is matched with the CSP 68M backpack instead of the 68L that was in that other set. There's also a Dust Devil version as well, and that comes with a Manticore helmet, a Warden backpack, and a PASC ballistic SMG from Bering. Also, there was a slight mention of Idris from Wikelo. I said an Idris from Wikelo. A Wikelo Idris. Guys, I have avoided that guy for so long, but it seems like it is now time. There's also special editions of ships at Teach's Ship Shop in Nix. So we'll have a Reclaimer in there with the tractor beams replaced with Sin Scraper modules, a Nomad with all 3 shields upgraded to bulwarks, a Drake Golem with an upgraded power plant, an Atlas Quantum Drive, and a couple of Guardian shields. A Drake Vulture with a tractor beam removed, and the Abrade salvage module removed and replaced with 2 Trawler salvage modules. Misk Fortune, tractor beam removed and replaced with an Abrade scraper module, and a Misk Starfarer as well, which has more total storage but a slower flow rate for the fuel. Also an Argo Mole. That's had its mining head replaced and now comes with Helix 2 and 2 Klein S2 mining lasers. There's also rentals for the Fortune, the Golem, the Vulture and the Mole. There was a bunch of paints for a Golem Ox, and the speculation is that this is some sort of cargo variant of the Golem, likely carrying a single 32 SCU crate, possibly 24 though, which makes that a surprising little variant. And that's it. That's all your news for this week. The hype train for IAE is on. Best start formulating your pleas to partners for access to some early Christmas presents, because that is a lot of ships and a lot of paints. That's all from me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe out there. 07 guys.